this video, we will be exploring the controversial field of electrotherapy. To start off, we will detail the work of popular Miami-based practitioner Devon Graham. After documenting the revolutionary methods being employed by Devon and his team, we will then travel a short distance north to meet Jeff Behary of Florida's very own turn-of-the-century Electrotherapy Museum. One often hears words like plasma device, Tesla coil, free energy, antiquitech, etc. thrown around on YouTube without much to ever back it up. This is not one of those videos. You will see this technology with your own eyes, right here in Florida. Things that will surely make you rethink the accepted history of electricity and wonder just what mankind was truly capable of. The views expressed in this video do not necessarily reflect my own. Now enjoy.
Welcome to Florida, baby.
Introducing Dr. Narco Longo.
Devon Graham, also known as the Black Airbender, is a prominent alternative health practitioner based in the Miami area. Through his public and private sessions, workshops, and online videos, he advocates a variety of holistically minded lifestyle changes with an extreme emphasis on proper breathing. However, Devon frequently employs what are known as Tesla coil or plasma guns, thus placing him at the forefront of Florida's modern electrotherapy industry. These devices discharge a visible electric arc, which can be directed towards body parts, injuries, food and water, etc., thus transmitting a measurable amount of plasma or electrical residue to the desired target. These discharges also release a noticeable amount of ozone into the air. The following is a unique glimpse into one of the practices which Devon has pioneered, one which I have termed electropuncture, that is, the firing of a Tesla gun directly into an inserted acupuncture needle. Devon's team consisted of himself as the director, his partner Jen, a multi-instrumentalist, Gerald, an athletic trainer, Ari, a professional violinist, Justin, a certified acupuncturist, and Kristen, a therapist and sound healer. This session was held in August of 2023 in Megalith Fitness of Miami. I was actually shocked to hear how cheap these services were being offered for, at under $40. After a quick introduction, the session began with some breathing and stretching, directed by Gerald. A steady drumming accompanied the synchronized movements of the attendees, setting a rather martial atmosphere, very unlike your typical feel-good sound healing. Right off the bat, one could tell this would not be a flowery, navel-gazing circle jerk. Following a brief period of rest, Devon then directed the group through a series of breathing exercises. Then, Justin went around and carefully inserted the acupuncture needles into the brows of the participants. All the while, The room swelled with anticipation as Ari arpeggiated her violin with a hypnotic tension. It is believed by many that, when resting, this third eye energy center is the most electromagnetically charged spot on the body. Every needle would be inserted without issue. Once every participant had been punctured, Justin whipped out the plasma gun and began discharging it directly into the needles. Not every material provides a visibly connected arc, but acupuncture needles act perfectly as a sort of lightning rod. For those wondering, there is no pain or discomfort when the gun is discharged, only a slight tingle. Ari's violin settled into a disembodied drone as Devon and Kristen peppered in various instrumentation. The session would climax with Jen belting out a timeless chant. After every participant had received a lengthy discharge, Justin carefully removed the acupuncture needles one by one, as various types of instrumentation cast a decidedly soothing atmosphere. Once every needle had been properly disposed of, the participants were then encouraged to share their immediate testimonials. While I couldn't record their testimonials without being intrusive, I can tell you that they were overwhelmingly positive. Numerous people had very profound experiences. I should also note that some of the attendees drove from out of state, and they made it clear that the trip was well worth it. After everyone who wished to share had shared, each member of the team individually introduced themselves. Then the session was complete. I was happy to learn that a handful of the participants were subscribed to Old World Florida, and we had a good chat. Now, though the night ended here, Devon and I would meet up a couple days later for a private tour of a very special facility. Right around the time that I had filmed Devon's session, I met Dr. James Spencer when he came into my bookstore. Dr. Spencer arranged a tour for us with his co-worker, Jeff Behary, curator of the turn-of-the-century Electrotherapy Museum, located in Riviera Beach, Florida. At this point, I had no idea what to expect, but I knew it would be interesting. I will tell you now that the technology you are about to see is far from my area of expertise, so I will just go ahead and roll the tape.
Yeah, either one.
Yeah, so if he's trying that one, you should stay away from the other one?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a ring.
Well, that's all right.
All right?
Yeah.
All right, I'm okay.
outside of that.
Yeah, but no car keys. No.
Difference here, he's going to turn at the negative side now. So if you shake your head a little bit, there I'm coming. Also, the side's really crazy because it's grounded and that capacity is one of the big chop. It's probably a purple.
His hair's dense.
Other side.
Dense. Don't. It ain't standing up. Her hair is real light.
Feel this.
So it's standing straight up.
Now it's like, no, never mind. Too many places, you know. So, that and the more buildings we have, the less.
They have to compete for
Yeah,
energy.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to pick the highest point when everything's kind of sticking up in the air.
And now we live in a modern age where the financial buildings are the highest point.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It is like
Yeah.
a sweater. Yeah.
So cool.
Go like this. Feel the breeze too.
It actually feels like a fan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It pushes your shirt right against you.
That's awesome.
When it's completely dark, you can even sometimes see certain organs and stuff. You can see the air IMAX. Really, really strange.
When they look at your hair just settles.
What we want to do is get some of the 80s old woman hairspray. Like the real. Your hand on there and just leave your hand on the ball until the thing stops spinning. Otherwise, you'll get a little spark.
And then turn towards the camera.
Yeah, maybe walk towards the edge here, just keep things away from the other terminal. Yeah, you can touch it.
Look at our hair.
Yeah.
It's fine. Just hold it. There you go. Breathe.
Oh yeah.
If you shake your head a little bit, your hair might stand up a little bit easier. Start propelling from itself.
There it goes.
Keep your hand on there.
That's just incredible.
And if I point to you with this, you'll be able to feel wherever I'm pointing. Feels like a cool breeze, right? Yeah. Even through your clothes, you feel a breeze through your clothes.
I felt like it was a fan.
Actually feels good.
That was the treatment in the days for people with nervous disorders. So if you had to get a lot of anxiety, you actually relax with this treatment.
I have a theory that once upon a time the atmosphere was more dense with plasma. And that's how we have like bigger remains of giants and bigger bones, bigger people.
Well, before we had all the buildings and stuff, absolutely. And you heard of like so many lightning strikes. In the 1700 books, there were chapters on how to protect your home from getting struck by lightning because there were so few structures. They were big. It was like, oh, let's go there. Oh, no, we're just going to show the things up there. Actually, since Ryan has the camera, we should get that Tesla gun going in the dark. It might get some good pictures.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's nice cool. Sounds, yeah. Oh, nice.
Here, I gotta get close.
No, this one here's next. Little guy. So this was a little coil for electrotherapy for women. They would use it for treating their face, like violet ray treatments. But I'm going to use it just to conduct up to here. So all of these tubes have different gases inside. And some of them look like the colors are kind of similar, but if you have the right instrument, no two gases have the same fingerprints. So there's very specific wavelengths that each one produces.
You know which one's which?
Yeah, I can't read them all from here, but like that's helium, this is neon, I believe this one's krypton.
Radon? Which one's radon?
Radon I don't have here. I mean, there's probably some coming off some of the radioactive stuff, but I haven't bottled it yet. But the idea with that is they were, based on the light that they give off, you could tell, you could look at a star with the same instrument and figure out which gases are in the stars. Because if they give off those specific wavelengths, you know, okay, it must be helium, must be hydrogen. They are. So it's just what's in them. And so the other idea is there's metals can be dissolved in those plasmas. And each metal has its own fingerprint. And that's what this chart is over here, but we won't look at that until the lights are on.
And that's your research, right?
That, yeah. And that patent, Spence, it's being granted on September 5th. So it's gone through. Where is... How did I lose this shit? How did I bring it over there? I mean, so these are liquids that respond to UV. They respond to different wavelengths of UV. I've only have one wavelength of flashlight here, but it works. And if you guys have heard of Vaseline glass, it was popular in the 20s. And people would take it on picnics and it felt like things were glowing. It's because they were glowing. They glowed under UV. And before they had UV lights, this was a way of studying. So all of these are made of rocks. And some of them are fluorescent, which means they glow, and when you turn it off, they stop glowing. These keep glowing, and that's called phosphorescence. So there's two different types. These are actually rocks that glow under UV, and you crush them, and the powders glow, and that's what's in fluorescent lights, neon lights. And before that, they had this in the 1800s, where they'd take it out, hold it up to the sun, and then look inside, and you could study the different phosphorescent compounds.
So I made these crystal lenses. This is emerald. I don't know what happens if you're shining UV.
Let's see if it goes through. Well, actually, let's take something like this. Oh, it transmits UV. It transmits UVA. So most likely they're not going to transmit UVC. UVB maybe a little bit, probably not too much. And this is the instrument. So this is one of the instruments that tells you what spectrum of light you're producing, but specifically this one tells you all the invisible spectra of light. And so what I did was take different metals, put sparks between them. And so on this is the visible part of the spectrum we can see. All of over here is the invisible part just in the UV range. So if we could see the colors of the UV rainbow, it'd be like, you know, 8 times more than what we can see in the rainbow.
Which exists. We just can't see it.
Right.
Humans can't. Scorpions can see it.
Scorpions?
Iron and magnesium, and you see there's very specific wavelengths. So this will make more sense after. Well, you guys saw the coil in the other room, but I'll fire up this one. Ryan, you're not in a good spot there. Yeah, you should be good there. So, yeah, this one's a higher voltage.
Can I touch it?
No. This one's no fun. Hopefully the wireless mic won't mind this too much.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what's practical? Smell the ozone from that one. So you guys can walk. So Tesla had this idea of wireless lighting.
Right.
You see pictures of him holding something. What you never saw was that there is always a generator nearby, right under it.
That's a secret.
And this one's not noisy like the other ones, but it's putting out 30 megahertz. Sometimes I can light it.
So what's your opinion?
My body
What's your
this way.
opinion if society had stuck with that?
It wouldn't be good in the long run. Only because these same wavelengths, it can be really beneficial for treating disease.
Right.
Too much of it's a bad thing.
I know. FDA wouldn't like that.
FDA wouldn't like it, and also it really screws up with cell signals and everything else that we rely on these days.
At that point, maybe we could have used something else. I know that in Apple, they have the airdrop feature, and apparently that wavelength, maybe in the future, but you can literally make a whole network based on pinging off everyone's airdrop signal.
Oh, okay.
You wouldn't really need power.
So over time, it was interesting. So this was a surgical Tesla coil from 20s. No, this will definitely cook you.
Oh.
Direct sparks will cook you with this. Indirect sparks from this one aren't too bad, but they're hot. If you touch the metal directly, you get burned.
This is the real UV exact.
So there's not UV coming from the glass. There's only UV from the sparks. The reason is, just like we did that little test with your glasses, the UV wavelengths generated by air inside of the UVC will only come out of quartz glass. So there was only
quartz glass?
No, this is soda lime. So this one doesn't transmit the UV. A couple of companies made them, but I'm having a hell of a time finding them.
Of course. I may be able to help you because this was hard to make. This took me like 8 months to find people who can like cut it.
So these electrodes were made for all shapes, sizes, parts of the body. Let you guess where this one's for.
Ladies.
Get stimulated.
Yeah, overstimulated though.
Exactly. How old is that machine, Jeff?
This is from the 20s.
1920 or 18?
1920. Yeah. So this machine was used for surgery, and these are gold electrodes that were because the gold didn't oxidize. And what they found with this, let's say someone had some cancerous growth, they would plunge this type of fork into the tissue, and and so what would happen? It would coagulate the tissue or cook it. And if you changed the frequency and adjusted it, you could cut the tissue without cooking it at all. So there were two very different things you could do with it. And it was useful for cancer because the problem if they use a scalpel, cysts that would be bleeding, and all the bad cancer cells would just move to the next spot and reinfect that part of the body. So if they coagulated, cooked the cyst first, it would stop the spread of bleeding that way, and then they could use the electricity and cut like a laser and make real precise incisions without actually cooking anything.
They're doing that similarly with holographic tech, where they're pinpointing the tumor instead of radiating the whole body, just pinpointing using holographics
Okay.
to do that. But that's literally That's really what it sounds like.
And it was also used for rehabilitation for therapy for heating. It heats from the inside out. So for cases of inflammation, you could heat like inside the joint somewhere instead of trying to apply external heat and just burning someone where it never gets where it needs to go anyway.
So the depth of penetration is better.
Yeah. And you could control the heat from the inside out instead of the other way around.
And when you say they cut,
Yep.
were they cutting without bloodshed? Or very little?
It depends. So there was less bleeding typically with these than with a scalpel, but it depends on the frequency. And so you can modify it where you can simply cut, and all it is like cutting with a knife. And they always said practice on steak. Every manufacturer had thick cuts of steak, and you could, on the coagulation setting, you could put it, the steak would start sizzling, burning, the electrode would stick to the steak, and depending how you adjust the machine, it could cook through the steak in 2 seconds or 5 minutes. And it was all a function of the power.
And why did medicine go different?
In the 30s, the biggest problem was it was interfering with everyone's radio. And during the Depression, that was their only source of entertainment. So what they did, they put a curfew on them to start. And so you couldn't use them at night.
So their entertainment was more important than their health. Well,
Yeah.
psychologically.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then after that, what happened after the Depression? What was the big event? It was leading up to
World War II?
World War II. So if you threw an antenna on this and used the foot pedal, you could transmit wireless messages 50 to 100 miles. So they were worried about German spies in the U.S. communicating with each other in the machines. And that's why all diaphragm machines come with FCC papers after that. And then a lot of the machines were advertised curing things maybe a little bit more overboard of what they could do. And so the FDA's solution was, we'll confiscate all of them, burn them, and pretend like they never existed. There was a huge quackery era in the 20s, and the amount of gray area is much larger than the black and white area at that time. And so,
And also sales pitch.
oh yeah, it was all in the sales pitch, and there were only 1 or 2 companies that actually kept the books. Their machines were never banned. They existed until the 90s. One of them still exists today, that company, Label Flarshot. They made the Bovie surgical machines that every dermatologist has. All they did was stick to the facts. And that's a good loophole. It's surprising how good that loophole works. You stick to the facts, you don't get thrown in jail, and your technologies don't get confiscated.
Can you light up the ozone accumulator?
Yeah, absolutely. That, yeah. So this was an idea of Tesla's. Another thing I threw together.
Has that thing exploded once before?
This,
Yeah.
it fell on the ground.
Okay.
This is lead shielding to an X-ray tube.
So it needs some like coast.
So it's just a normal Tesla. But when you separate the distance and add capacity, you get this ionization effect. And it hits some of ozone. What the patent was all about was 2020 pandemic hit. I got a chunk of meteorite, which of course I forgot to wear again. Every time there's people, I always forget to wear the damn thing. So I got a chunk of meteorite that's older than Earth. And meteorites are typically metals, typically iron and nickel. And so I had this stupid idea, like, let's see what UV spectrum meteorite generates. So I capacitor discharge between the metals, and it's this right here. You see a very bright white spot of UV. It's almost continuous UV, but this area right here is the the section of UV that kills viruses most effectively.
Can you point that out?
Yep.
Where would copper fall on that?
Copper is way down here somewhere. Oh.
That was strong.
There's some copper there. So this is a mix of all these different elements. And so each element by itself puts out a spectrum. And that was something they studied because they wanted to know, all right, let's say we have a mystery material, we burn it or we send sparks across it, we can kind of figure out what's in stuff based on which wavelengths we see. That's called spectroscopy. What I did here was, let's alloy them specifically to hone in on different wavelength ranges that we don't have naturally. Or we have naturally, but just not here. So like the sun generates everything from here up, but none of it gets to us because the ozone layer blocks that. And so we're generating them artificially in the lab with mercury for killing like UVC lights, basically killing bacteria, viruses, that sort of thing. But it's a very specific wavelength of 254 nanometers. So it's useful because it falls in this range right here. But the meteorite hit the whole thing. No. I replicated it here in a lamp using basically iron and nickel electrodes. And I alloyed them with oxyacetylene and that. And the cool thing is if you mix them together in the same ratios, you replicate it. What you don't replicate is maybe the hardness, when meteorites come through the atmosphere, they melt, they cool, you get all these cool grain patterns, this and that, but when all you're doing is burning it or sending sparks across it, that doesn't matter. You're still going to get the same wavelength. Yep.
Jeff, one thing I would like you to share with them is the X-ray,
Oh yeah, this is a good one.
and then tell your kin rate story too. I think that's pretty impactful.
That's a fun one. So the problem with early X-rays is that exposures would take a while. The tubes were limited how fast you could make an exposure with them, and it was never really a big deal unless you're trying to X-ray the heart, because the heart's beating, and the problem with that is if your heart beats during the X-ray, it's going to be a blurry image because it's moving. So this was the solution for that, and it's a 200,000 volt transformer. Puts out AC, and the problem, X-rays want DC to run the X-ray tubes. So this is a rectifier that mechanically converts the AC to DC. AC is a wave, and what it's doing, it takes the top and bottom of the wave. What this machine was able to do was take a shit ton of power, and you could make an X-ray in 200th of a second even with the old technologies. And so you could actually capture an X-ray of a living heart with this machine better than most machines could of a cadaver's heart. And so it starts off, we'll get the motor running. It's a synchronous motor. This is about 1/10 the power of this machine because I don't have a line big enough, 240 line ran big enough here, but we'll see the spark on the top. And with that spark being sent through one of those antique tubes, 200th of a second done. Perfect X-ray.
Quick.
That quick.
And how old is that machine?
This one's around 1907.
And how many volts?
200,000 on this one. So this machine, for X-rays, you wouldn't need that many. You would lower it to maybe 70,000, because at 200,000, your bones are transparent too. But it was also used for radiotherapy. So.
And then would you share your kin rate story?
Yeah,
I think that's pretty impactful.
Kinraid's story is something. So back in around 95, I got a book called High Frequency Currents. It was about a guy he developed the first therapeutic Tesla coil. But in his early days, he was doing X-ray research. And he started at a time when it was brand spanking new. And at that time, most people were kind of making x-rays of the hand, but that's about as good as they could get. They didn't have the tubes, they didn't have the power, they didn't have a bunch of variables you needed. There was one guy in Boston that was able to x-ray the entire human body live in his house. And so this doctor in the book, he wrote how he got started with everything, and it was being inspired by this guy. And a couple sentences in a book, but it bothered me for 10 years. I'm like, I got to figure out who this guy was. And for no particular reason. And I became obsessed with finding out. And I bought every x-ray book I could find. And maybe I found a sentence here, a sentence there, but that's it. And then I built a replica of one of his machines. And the next day I had a dream, basically, that night. And in the dream, I was trying to open a coffee shop in real life at the time. And there were kids in the dream said, hey, you like coffee, go to the June bug. And so I woke up from this dream and I'm thinking, all right, wonder what that means. And I Google it, and there's a coffee shop, June Bug Cafe in Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts, where this inventor was working and where his house was. I didn't know where his house was, but I knew he was from there. And so I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. So I'm going to build something else, see what happens. So I built another one of his inventions. And I didn't have any strange dreams that night. But the next day, I got a phone call from someone in the cemetery in Jamaica Plain. And it was someone doing research on one of his friends. And I said, well, shit, that's a sign. I got to go to Boston. I got to see if I can find anything. And I booked the ticket a month in advance. And in that short amount of time, I built another little gadget of his. No dream, no phone call, but the next day, one of his patents was for sale on eBay. And I bought it, and it was an original patent from England. And I didn't expect to get it in time, but it arrived 2 weeks before I was flying out. And the first line of the patent was, I, Thomas Burton Kinraid of 38 Spring Park Avenue, Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts. I knew where the guy's house was. So I Googled it. I called the guy. Steve Williams was his name. He was a realtor. And he's like, oh, Jeff, yeah, Kinraid's a legend in town. Nobody knows what he did or who he was, but he built my house, and everyone knows it. And so I'm like, can I come see your house? He's like, yeah, absolutely. So I go to Boston expecting a house. It's a 25-room mansion. It's something out of a fairy tale. And the guy ended up, his daughter had an emergency, but he had someone just let me in the house, a handyman that he had. It was a $2 million house. I'm wandering around. The first thing I want to do is go to the basement. So I go to the basement, and I'm looking, and there's what looks like a little closet door. And I said, okay, I want to see what's in the closet. So I open it up, and what looks like a closet was actually a passageway to 4 rooms. And in those rooms, I found all the stuff I read about in the book. Let me get this a second. Hey, Robert. I am. Oh, did any of you guys lose some money? 2 20s? Oh, okay. We got them in the other building. Awesome. Thank you, Robert. Yeah. It's yeah, so basically I found the stuff I read about from this doctor's experience in this house. I told the owner, I called him up, I said, you're sitting on a gold mine here. There's all sorts of this guy's inventions under your house. And there were 4 hidden rooms that were blasted out with concrete originally, with dynamite rather. So they looked like caves. It was like being in a mansion and then wandering through caves. And the guy said, Jeff, take it all or I'd have thrown it away. And so some of the things I found in these rooms were glass photos of electricity that this guy took. And so there's hundreds of them. Most of them are damaged, but this is a negative of negative electricity. So everywhere that the spark was is black. Those are the sparks that he was creating. And I sent pictures of those sparks. You know, I had all sorts of electrical machines, and I sent pictures of them to, at the time, I did a show with Jägermeister, like a commercial for them. And there were lightning experts from NASA that were in the same commercial. And I said, oh, I'm going to reach out to those guys. And so I said, I have photos of sparks that I can't quite explain. Like, they don't look like anything I've ever seen working with electrical machines. And I sent them a few pictures, and they're like, we'll come down, we'll see you Friday. So in 2 days, at Florida Tech, the dean of the school and 3 of their professors came. And they were saying, well, I can't believe you have this. This is sprite lightning. This is stuff we're studying. All these rare lightning forms that we have mathematical pictures of what they should look like, but you have actual photos of it made in someone's lab over 100 years ago. And between when that happening was 2010 and now, they're actually photographing it for real. They have cameras high speed enough. And I just filed a patent of how to replicate it in the lab. So I'm making it based on what this guy Kinraid was doing, but not exactly, because I didn't know exactly how he was making it. I just know my adaptation of his work results in the same thing.
That's the art of this.
And that's where there's art, there's unexplored science, who knows. Maybe the stuff's dangerous, maybe not, I don't know. I know that you can generate it with very little power, and you can stick your hands and face in it, and it interacts with you. And Kinraid was a spiritualist, so he called it electrical entities. And so when it's operating, there is stuff that looks like orbs in the photos and this and that, and it's...
Are you familiar with petroglyphs?
No.
So petroglyphs are those stick figures you see in ancient caveman writings.
Okay.
So if you put them side by side to plasma discharge, they look exactly the same.
Oh, okay.
So he was onto something.
And a lot of times that will be their god. Be like some lightning.
Oh, okay. Well, Kinraid, it was very strange. Like anything associated with this guy's life, I'm complete non-spiritualist atheist. But, however, with this guy's life, I have to say it gives me an idea that there could be something. Because every time I've replicated his work, and this is 3 examples of hundreds, I've gotten more information. And that same guy that I knew nothing about, I have a 5,000-page reference book on Internet Archive of his life now. And it's all pieces that fell from the sky, more or less, into my lap, including meeting his family and other crazy things. Oh, yeah. That's... And another quick story is this lamp over here has a really interesting story. So there's 2 of these, one here, one at Smithsonian. Smithsonian's never seen theirs operate. This guy's given credit with the fluorescent lamp invention. He worked for GE. The real inventor was 200 years prior, but that's because we never learned the complete history of anything, especially when GE was funding the history books. But really good guy. That's the picture of the lamp operating over there. He invented wireless lights like Tesla. He did a lot of really cool research. He died in the 20s. His estate was worth, I think, $3 million back then, so a shit ton of money. And he left all his money to his daughter and his wife. But they're 2/3 to his daughter, 1/3 to his wife. But there was a stipulation: if the daughter didn't marry and have kids, that it would all go to the wife. Well, the daughter didn't know this, the wife did. So the daughter was beautiful, popular with the guys. So first thing the mom did was lock her up in her room and not let her go outside. And so then, because it's 1920s, she had her condemned to an asylum for masturbation. And so while this girl was in an asylum who didn't belong there, she had an appendix problem. She had to have her appendix removed. When she got out, she found scars where she shouldn't have had for an appendix operation. The mom paid the doctor to sterilize her without her consent. She went and got herself x-rayed, found out she was sterilized, sued her mom, won, and this is an original photo of her in the 30s, then with wedding proposals from around the US of guys willing to marry her. And that's original Associated Press photos. But crazy story, like all the history we don't know in the US, there was huge eugenics movement. There was all sorts of shit happening in the country that nobody talks about, like violet ray machines and shock therapy and all, good stuff, bad stuff. There's a whole, every side of history that we only get to see a tiny slice of. And
See this one.
the Hogan.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is, so if you guys have seen Frankenstein,
Yeah.
this was in all the Frankenstein films. Oh, they have the bodies exhibit. That's a whole other story. I've been wanting to reanimate a cadaver for a long time, and getting a hold of one legitimately is very hard. And so this was originally a surgical coil. So you can coagulate tissue with that. The top part's called a Udin resonator. And so you can do the wireless light experiments with it. They look better in the dark. But this machine was used in hospitals, actually for surgery and violet ray treatments and you name it. All of these machines were in competition with each other. But the guy that worked for Universal Studios, Kenneth Strickfaden, he was like their prop creator. And so when it came time to publicize the Frankenstein stories, he was the one creating all the arcs and sparks. And in those films, everything was real. If there was arcs going across people's faces, it was there for real. They had to be aware of it all. And so he was buying up all these electrotherapy machines because they were in business. He could find all these parts. And he has a huge legacy. Last film he did was Young Frankenstein, but he did all the effects props in The Wizard of Oz and maybe 100 different films. And so there's a cabinet over there of Tesla coils that were all his. And when he died, they were passed down to John Foster, who ran Universal Studios at the time. And he passed them down to my mentor, Bill Wysock, who was a Hollywood guy that made lighting on demand for films. And then Bill passed them on to me before he died. So the short lineage of very historical Tesla coils in the end. So between the ones found in Kinraid's house are the earliest surviving Tesla coils in the world. He knew Tesla, and very recently I acquired letters from Belgrade between Tesla and Kinraid. They communicated. Tesla used his fluorescent screens in his X-ray research. And also when Tesla patented this Wardenclyffe Tower, which I have family photos somewhere here of it, certain aspects of the tower were thrown out by the patent office. In the original drawings, you'll see the donut toroid on top. Well, Kinraid already patented that. So it was thrown out at the office, and the final design had these spheres that were arranged around the terminal.
You have that for the final, the full picture of it?
I do. And so in the end, Tesla had a huge file on Kinraid and others because Tesla dropped the ball. He was fucking around doing a million things at once, going out to fancy dinners with people, instead of actually pursuing anything commercial. And what happened in the end is everyone else said they were making livings out of it. And so Kinraid was one example. He supplied most of the U.S. with the early X-ray machines. They were Tesla coils. This was my replica of one of his designs, but you could theoretically carry this thing on horse and buggy, go to a town, make an X-ray of someone with a fracture, diagnose them, do the whole 9 yards. This is one of the original tubes. I think there's only 2 in existence. That's the original tube stand, which is the only one that exists.
I wonder why an X-ray costs so much, when it's that easy.
It is that easy. And I've made X-ray machines from scratch for less than $2,000. So now, I mean, you can go on Alibaba or Made in China. You can buy X-ray tubes for $350. You could buy the power supplies for nothing. And I was in Aunt Minnie, which I don't know if you know, in the radiological news, it was like it's like a thing, online thing that they publish. I wanted to recreate a 1920s Tesla coil using modern materials where you could combine surgical machine, different electrocautery modalities, x-rays, whole 9 yards, typical suitcase thing of the 20s, and offer it for sale for third world countries. Because why not have an x-ray machine for $2,000 out the door that any town could afford instead of the nonsense we have today? And it didn't catch on. Nobody was interested. Yeah, I think in time.
Build them. Put them out there. They'll want them.
Yeah.
How about some of the original bulbs that you have from the 20s?
I have earlier ones still. I can show you pictures of them because they make x-rays, so I don't like demonstrating them too much. But this is a single wire Tesla light. There's 3 in the world that we know of, but this Friday I'm going to see 2 more, possibly, that were in one of the biggest Edison collector in the world's collection. And so there's a guy, Charlie Hummel, that passed away. What's that? So it's a little carbon filament in the top, and what happens, it's a ground foil on the outside, and when you hold this, your body forms the other electrode. And it's lit by high frequency. The glass glows bright yellow green. And oh no, not this one. This is this is a little too expensive. What I can show you this one. Let me hit the lights. I'll show you this one. This one glows the same yellow green, but it's because it's made of that uranium glass. And it doesn't make x-rays. The vacuum's not quite right to make x-rays, but it is a kind of a higher vacuum. And let's do it with this thing. So it starts to light up just approaching it. Then if I touch the top, it lights up more. And that's principles of Tesla's phosphorescent carbon button lamps.
What's the gas?
It's just normal air. And it's a partial vacuum. So it's a higher vacuum than what's in the violet ray electrodes, but and this was made by a glassblower, Lutz Neumann, who's in Germany in the original factory that made a lot of Tesla lamps. So that lamp down there, it wasn't made by Tesla. It was made by a German firm that was licensed to make some of his lamps. This is another one. It's kind of cool. It's the first competitor of the Cooper Hewitt guy. And this was a guy, he actually worked with Edison. And Edison knew that he had to come up with something besides the incandescent lamp. And so this guy's name was Daniel McFarland Moore. And he was this is carbon dioxide gas. And it was the same guy is the first one to use neon inside of lamps. So he's kind of the father of neon lamps. And really cool guy. He worked with Edison. He developed a whole series of lamps that we know nothing about these days. It would be so cool to replicate in a room. He was running the carbon dioxide in big glass tubes about 2 inches diameter around rooms, and then lighting the gas and having like an ambient light. Almost like rope lighting today in a way, but it would have looked really cool back then. So I think at some point in time, once I have the museum in a real spot, I'll be able to replicate this stuff more. But right now it's convoluted just because of being in my place of employment here. Yeah. I wanted, I wanted to get ceramic sockets, but they're so expensive. These lamp sockets are all 3D printed.
Let's see the Tesla speedometer.
Oh, the speedometer, yeah. This is a fun story. So, this was one to a Lincoln. So one of the very few commercial products with Tesla's name on it is a speedometer. And I was so excited to get one. Then I got another one, and I found out that he totally fucked someone over. He stole someone else's idea, and I didn't believe the story at first until I researched it, and it was such an injustice to this guy in Iowa. He was a watchmaker. He made miniature motors. He did all sorts of cool stuff. And he got a contract with Waltham Watch to make a speedometer. And I always saw as a historian, like, why did Tesla patent stuff with a watch company? Like, there's in Waltham, Massachusetts, there's no logical connection as to why Tesla in New York stopped everything and started making a speedometer. Like, no point. Well, he developed his Tesla turbine at the time. He thought it was going to take off. Didn't work very well. Didn't get the money that he wanted to develop it. And he was really pissed off because they just tore down his tower to sell it because he owed money on that. And he was just in a sad place in his life. This guy got a contract with Waltham for a speedometer that used very similar principles to his Tesla turbine. Completely unique, not in any competition in any way. It was just the guy found out if you spun a cup of brass near another cup of brass that was just a few thousandths of an inch different in size, it would spin as a result. And so he was able to measure he had a direct drive from an automobile engine spinning a cup, and the other cup would tell you what speed you were going at. Real simple. And someone, I guess, at Waltham discovered hey, this is kind of similar to Tesla's turbine. Probably be better to have Tesla's name on it than this guy's, but this guy came up with it. Word got back to Tesla. He threatened to sue the guy in Iowa if he proceeded with the invention. There was a huge lawsuit. In Belgrade, they have all the lawsuit paperwork, but it would run me about $3,000 to get Xeroxes of it all.
So was this Edison pushing him to do this, or?
No, this was Tesla on his own, and this was this other guy on his own. This other guy was just a watchmaker, clever guy. And there was a trial, lawsuits, whatever. In the end, this design that has Tesla's name matches the other inventor's speedometer 100%, and Tesla's patent 0%. But they split the royalties. And the other family resented Tesla because they figured they could become rich off it. In the end, I think Tesla got $35,000. He borrowed basically $35,000 from his nephew to quickly develop a patent. Got all the money back as royalties and didn't pay his nephew back a dime, which was very typical of Tesla too. And his nephew still did a lot of things for him, took him out to dinner, and Tesla was a perpetual pain in the ass for him. They would show up to dinner for the early bird special, and Tesla would insist they pay full price, even though it was his nephew paying the bill.
So all this talk about is doing it so wrong, he was just passing it on down.
Tesla did he made a lot of mistakes, and the one thing he did do was inspire so many people to do great things. And if he would have stuck on his inventions, it would have been awesome. But other people did, and then he was, there's books all whining, that violet ray machine, that's Tesla's ideas. They stole it from him. Oh, that surgical machine, they stole his ideas. This X-ray machine. No, but they actually developed it, made commercial products, and helped people at the end of the day. So in the end, it was more the effect of Tesla than anything else. And if he wasn't around, these seeds wouldn't have been planted in these people's brains to pursue this line of work they did. So he absolutely changed the face of the planet.
Did they have gyroscopes? Did they know what that was?
They did, and I have one somewhere here. I think someone has it in their office.
What were they doing with them? Or anything?
The coolest thing that they did with them was to stabilize boats and airplanes. And so the gyroscope I have was designed to be in a boat where if the waves got turbulent and the boat would start rocking, you'd turn on the gyroscope and it would instantly level out. They're really cool. And this is a... I think he was probably at one point. I know Kinraid was, because Kinraid had like an unfinished work on an airplane that he was working on in the 20s.
Have you seen the flying boats yet? The new flying boats? Do you know if they're using that?
No, I have not seen those. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's a boat and then it starts to just fly.
Oh, that's cool.
Instead of, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's fully electric.
Oh, wow. That's wild. Well, Tesla, recently I went to Pittsburgh and I photographed 6,500 documents of Teslas. That you've heard of the Tesla FBI file.
Yeah.
My good friend that passed away was person of suspicion #1 in that file. And his name was Leland I. Anderson, and he started collecting original Tesla memorabilia the year Tesla died. And he left the scene because of all the nonsense that was happening in the 90s and a lot of phony history being told, and he just got disgusted and walked away from it all. That, and he became legally blind, which didn't help matters at all. Brilliant guy. His last wish was that I made machines to accompany his collection. And I tried, and I've been trying and trying, but the museum that has his collection isn't biting. But they did grant me permission to photograph his stuff there. I took my vacation last year for a week, and all I did was take pictures for 9 hours a day, and I took 6,500 photos. And so the archive material there, stuff Belgrade donated long ago that they now don't give up to people. And all the stuff's still there. So the Tesla archive still exists. It's in Pittsburgh in the Heinz Museum, which used to be Westinghouse Museum. And it's boxes of stuff.
What was this building that you said they were tearing down?
Oh, that was General Electric.
That was GE? Okay.
That was GE. And
that wasn't a tip.
that I got as much as I could. And I can't walk in my place. There's so much stuff. I mean, I have a pathway to the fridge, to the bed, and to the bathroom. But I have at least 6,000 pounds of books in my bedroom. Like floor to ceiling books, research papers, boxes.
You already had fire to do that.
I did in the other rooms. The bedroom was at least you could walk in. No, not anymore. It's. I need to.
Anything else that you can think of that you want to share, Jeff?
Trying to think offhand. Oh, this is fun. The carbon arc. This was the first electric lamp. You can't look at it because it's too bright, but it's basically two carbons, and you strike an electric arc between them, and it makes light. And it was the first electric light source. It can. It's really bad. But the thing next to it is a Crookes radiometer. It was Tesla's favorite invention of a guy that inspired him. And it's basically, there's fans and they're painted black on one side and white on the other. And there's a high vacuum and just the residual air molecules in there are what's making it spin. And so it's running now from the UV light and infrared radiation from that lamp.
So technically we can even power houses with light.
It's always been a kind of a curiosity. There's no power behind it. I mean, you can stop it really easily.
Oh, okay.
But they've made those as like Christmas ornaments, window ornaments, and people have had them in their house running from sunlight for 20 years. And
so what's that called again? Carbon?
Crookes radiometer.
Crookes radiometer.
Yep. And Crookes, I just got that there was a book in my office I was showing Spence. It was, so you can see the carbons glowing orange. The arc is like a welding arc that forms between those at 6,000 degrees.
What do you say to some people who didn't believe Tesla existed as a conspiracy theory? Never existed. And then I saw a picture with him with Yogi something. Yeah, and I was like, there it is. What do you say to that?
The problem I have as a Tesla historian, there's two things. One, when someone's your biggest fan, you want to learn everything you possibly can about them. And then invariably you get disappointed with what you learn because you learn too much. But at the same time, it's interesting, and his life was really interesting. The way he's portrayed in books and on the internet right now is a travesty, because 5% of it is true and 95% of it isn't. And his life, of all people's lives, you didn't have to make up anything to make it interesting. Like, it was interesting from start to finish, and the interactions with people he had, and his mistakes, and all the good things he did, you name it. Oh, it's probably weird. Hey, Robert. So, yeah, I mean, he influenced more people than anyone else. Really interesting life. The hardest part now is to get people to unlearn all the things that they, it's so easy when you're inspired by people to just believe everything you read. And the problem is when it's untrue and you've read it 20 times, is how do you convince those same people what the real history was? And it's not like it's bad or any less interesting. At the end of the day, he's still really cool. It's just that the stories, and so many people have written stories for their own benefit.
I think he also foresaw, I guess, how history was being rewritten with his partner, so they made like a death mask. Did you see the death mask?
I know that the death mask was made by Hugo Gernsback.
Yeah, Hugo.
And Hugo's the one that did the Electrical Experimenter magazines, which I just have the collages over there. James, you were asking about them. They're up behind those machines.
So that was his partner. Yeah, whatever happened to Hugo afterwards? Hugo, like, extend or anything? My thing is, why did Hugo, like, protect some of the Don't worry about it.
Gernsback, I don't remember the end of his life. I think it was really interesting, though. I know he was at the funeral, and I know he was responsible for a lot of trying to help things out when Tesla passed. I'd have to relook what happened to him. I know Thomas Comerford Martin, who wrote the best book of collection of Tesla's work. He published his lectures in a real thick book, 1904. Like, he did so much for Tesla, and I was heartbroken to find a letter from him later on, because he worked for Century Magazine. He was an editor, but on the side he was promoting Tesla left, right, and center. And he wanted to quit Century Magazine and just do his own thing. And he did that, and he asked Tesla, he said, could you just please write me some articles so that it takes off, because without you, I'm left, right, and center. And he wanted to quit Century Magazine and just do his own thing. And he did that, and he asked Tesla, he said, could you just please write me some articles so that it takes off, because without you, I'm going to be drowning. But if I have a couple articles from you, that's all I need. Tesla said sure, and he never did it. And I saw a letter later from him saying, of all the things I've done for him, I've never been more disappointed. And it was such a sad thing to read, because Martin, literally, all the money he made off of his books, he gave back to Tesla, 100%. And he did so much for him. And this is something I should show you. You've heard of the Battle of the Currents between Tesla and Edison? Yes. So it was really between Westinghouse and Edison. Edison thought, the idea was, we're going to light the World's Fair. First time most people see light bulbs. First time most people are out after dark, because the show's going to be lit. Edison thought, this is a cat in the bag. Who's going to bid against me? So he bid a kind of a high price. He didn't think anyone would throw in another offer. Westinghouse underbid him by half, knowing that it was going to be at a loss, but that he would get the contract. So Westinghouse won the contract. Next thing, Edison said, where are you going to get all your light bulbs? Because I'm not going to sell you any. So they needed 250,000 light bulbs for this event. And as it happened, Westinghouse bought the rights of a little-known lamp inventor, Sawyer Mann. And he came up with an idea of making a 2-part lamp that didn't interfere with Edison's patents. They were complete shit. They didn't last very long, but they lit the World's Fair. And Westinghouse actually developed the light, a modification of the light in his own, and he patented it personally. So this is one of the bulbs that lit the World's Fair. And there aren't many left. Yeah, of course. And one thing I can never do is light it up, because they were backfilled with nitrogen and they leaked throughout the fair. So if I lit it up, the filament would go boom, and that would be it. And these funny little like Lichtenberg figures you see on the glass, like little, that's a sign that the vacuum was lost inside. And what happened is, as the gas was escaping, the dust rearranged itself in the fractal patterns, which is kind of common throughout the universe. You see these same patterns like in the Kinrade sparks. And that was all part of the World's Fair. And those 2 meters on the wall with the glass fronts are Westinghouse meters that were in that photo. I don't know if those are the exact ones. They were from Pittsburgh. They were behind glass in a school since the 20s.
Did you ever check out New Jersey? That museum over there?
I've been dying to go there, and I have.
used to live a couple blocks away. I never ever went inside.
I've been really wanting to go because I know a lot of the history is just wrong. Because people that run museums often don't give a shit. they're just
like
fucking there collecting
like
it. Yeah, they're there collecting a check. But there's an Edison collection I'm going to see actually this Friday in Baltimore. Chad Shapiro. It's this kid that collects light bulbs, but he's paid 6 figures for a light bulb. And he has the earliest Edison artifacts anywhere. And he, unbelievable. He has scrapbooks from the earliest labs of making a phonograph, making light bulbs, from the guy who was drawing all the blueprints for Edison. Like, really priceless paperwork. And light bulbs and history, and he's a great guy, and he'll, like me, he'll here, pick it up, touch it, here you go.
Hey Jeff, why don't you share Dave Archer's story too?
So Dave Archer, he was an artist living in LA, and his friend got a Tesla coil, and he had this idea. They were playing together, like, let's see what paint and sparks do. And so he started creating these, mixing the paint on glass. He did a reverse glass painting, was a technique. And so he would spread some paint on glass, put it on top of a Tesla coil, and then with a metal rod, arc to it, and it would spread out in these cool nebula-looking patterns. And they look like today what we have as NASA photos, like all these space photos. His paintings captured exactly. And so he ended up becoming the artist that did all the artwork in the background of the Star Trek ships in the TV shows. So in those shows, you'll see pictures of these kind of nebula scenes throughout the ship. Those are all his. But the artwork that he has, my mentor built the coil for him originally. He was doing it for 50 years, and on his 82nd birthday, he decided to have an art exhibit and kind of come out of retirement. And so he asked me to come over and help him. He was in South Lake Tahoe.